MadLab Performance presents The Lab Podcast. Here's your host and chief mad scientist, Dan Gilbert.
Hello and welcome everybody to The Lab. I'm here with Alec, Bulat, executive producer, fitness coach. Alec, how you doing today?
Pretty sweet. How you doing, Dan?
I'm excellent as always. And we're lucky to be joined by Rossi, nutritional coach, fitness expert. Giules, as we call you, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I am great. Let me ask you one question before we get started. The socks. I love the socks. Tell us a little bit about them, where you got them, who you stole them from, those kind of things.
They're my spooky socks. They were from TJ Maxx. Came in a pack of 16.
Ooh.
So I got a lot of them queued up for the holiday season.
That's a great answer. This is the Wolf Dog. No explanation needed. Today's podcast is brought to you by FNX Fitness. If you're looking for a supplement company that'll help you rise up, look no further than FNX Fitness. With products ranging from recharge to help amp up your workout, restart for your AM protein blend, or rebalance for all of your green, super green needs, actually. Whether it be gaining muscle or just looking to live a healthier life, FNX will help you get there. For 15% off of all FNX products, use the code, Alec, MadLab, capital M, capital L.
That is correct.
MadLab, yes. For 15% off, put that in your cart at checkout, and that way we can get you closer to all of your nutritional goals. Today's episode is about all things lacrosse and training people that play lacrosse. Is that correct, Giules?
I think so, yeah.
I believe that's why we have Giules on today. Because Giules, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have some experience playing lacrosse, right?
Yeah, I have a little bit of experience playing lacrosse. I played through college, so that was kind of fun. Yeah. And then, yeah.
Cool. So you played once or twice?
Yeah, just a couple games.
Okay,
but,
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Sweet. What position did you play?
Growing up, I always played defense, and then in college, they switched me to attack. So it was kind of like a change of mindset, change of.
But what?
Yeah.
Like, was it just an availability thing where like they needed to attack people, or like what? Because that's a big switch.
Yeah, yes and no, and it's also it kind of came down to like build. Like a lot of the attackers on our team, you kind of need some size, and I was always taller and like a little bit like stronger than the rest of the team, and so yeah, you kind of want someone who can go in there and break the 8 and break through that defensive kind of like line, and then go and.
Break
shoot
the 8.
score.
I like that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
You want to
Break the
explain?
That was way over my head right there.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I don't know anything about lacrosse. Like, you guys are going to have to explain as simple detail as just like the positions on the field. Besides, I know there's attack and defense. I don't know how many people are playing attack and defense, and there's one goalie, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if you count both teams, there's 2 goalies.
Aha. Okay. So, but so a singular team. So a singular team. There's
Single
one
team
goalie.
has one goalie
Of
on the
course,
field. Yeah.
I knew that. I've watched lacrosse, but so there's
Does
8.
any sport have multiple goalies?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
That was very confident that you guys said that really quick.
Yeah,
I
because
bet
soccer's one, hockey's one, lacrosse is one,
You
field hockey's one.
Create a sport with multiple goalies.
That might end up being really bad for the goalies.
Just like really
Crash into each other.
Well,
a
it
lot.
could be like tennis. Like one person plays in front and one person plays in the back, and then they just like.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll create a sport. We'll figure it out.
Almost
Okay.
like it's some kind of like pinball game.
So explain, break it down for me really quickly. Like,
Break the 8.
If you were to explain lacrosse to an alien who has never seen anything ever, aka me in this example, tell me about lacrosse. Like, what is the game like? What's the flow of the game? What's the speed at? Like, tell me about the game.
Yeah. So I guess from my perspective, I've only played women's lacrosse. I am a woman, so.
But also an above average male that we found out
Above
with his
average
jumping
male,
ability.
yeah, just because of broad jumping. But yeah, other than that, I played women's lacrosse. So in women's lacrosse, you kind of break the field up by restraining lines. So you have the end line, which is where the ball goes out of bounds, and then about 10 yards before that, or like an end zone kind of is where it was on our field, you have the goal line.
Okay.
So the goal line is set up, and then 30 yards from that, you have the first restraining on either side, and then you have midfield, or like half the field.
Gotcha.
And so certain positions can cross certain lines, certain positions can't. You just have to have a certain number of girls back behind their opposite 30-yard restraining, and you can only have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 girls and the goalie past the restraining. So if like a midi drops back because they like need to, then like a defender, like say the defense like got the ball on a clear, and so they are running up and they have no one to pass the ball to, a midi can step back and that defender can then cross the line.
It's like a combination of.
Sounds like hockey to an extent, similar in some ways.
Yeah.
But everybody can cross on hockey.
Some of the plays are kind of like hockey, like some of the offensive plays and some of the defensive ideas when you get down to the crease.
Okay.
I think a lot of it also. I think a lot of the plays are more like basketball.
Okay.
Honestly, like, you know, obviously, like it's so much different because you have a bouncing ball and then you have sticks and like you have a tiny, you know, there's no hoops or anything. But the plays that you run, like you set picks in lacrosse. You have somebody like in the paint that you might like throw down to a post player. So you have a crease attackman that you try to get the ball to. A lot of times that you'll pass the ball around the perimeter before you can get in anything inside. You'll take outside shots too. So when I played lacrosse, like it reminded me a lot of like the play setups were like basketball. Yeah. Defense, you slide your feet. You're never crossing your feet for the most part unless somebody's already by you, just like basketball. So some of that's kind of the same.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And so you referenced, and I want to just clarify this one really quickly. You referenced midi. So what exactly is that? An attacking position? What is the position midi?
It's both.
It's both. So how many midis are there?
There are 3 midfielders.
3 midfielders. Okay.
If you are lucky enough to play midfield, you get to run the field up and down a million times because you play both positions.
Yeah. So it's like soccer in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like your attackers would only stay from their, you know, the opposing team's like goal line or the opposing team's end line up to where like their team's like 30-yard restraining starts.
Gotcha.
So you have, what is that, like 70 yards? Is that math wrong? Yeah.
Yeah.
To play unless someone crosses over, then I can cross.
Okay.
Like stuff like that. And same thing with defense. Like they can only go from like their side of the field to the opposite side restraining. Gotcha. Unless you're a midi. Midis can cross both ways because they play both ways.
So Dan, you mentioned that it was similar to basketball in a lot of ways, right? As far as, do you mean by full of play wise, like just like the actual setup and everything going on?
Once you get into, it becomes like basketball in the sense like once you get down into like a set offense. So once you're over the restraining line and you have all your attackers there and you have your midfielders there, then a lot of the plays that you call are similar in style to basketball. Okay. Like a basketball half-court offense. Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah. The transitional game, well, obviously there's transition in basketball. The transitioning in lacrosse is different. Okay. I think much different. You know, there's still aspects of any transition in any sport that's going to be somewhat the same. But then you can only have certain players in certain places, just like Giules said. Otherwise, you're offsides. So then that's much different than basketball. But yeah, that like the half-court setup or your attack setup is kind of the same.
Interesting.
I think.
Yeah.
So, quick question, and this is for both of you, is so it kind of makes me think of hockey. Have you ever heard the term cycling before for hockey, where they're cycling the puck around? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Is that relatively similar?
Yeah. Same thing. Like and to bring up basketball, like when I was in high school and like it would rain, you would have indoor practices, and so like sometimes we'd play basketball. Instead of lacrosse. We'd run plays because we'd had to be inside in the gym. So we would run plays like we would outside for lacrosse, but we'd be passing around a basketball instead of like
that's smart.
And stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like super similar.
But like in hockey, you have guys that go down into the crease. You try to either feed them or shoot from outside, and you cycle the puck so that you can confuse the goalie because it's hard to see a lot of times, and then also so you get defenders move around and switch, right? Because then there's more chance that they can create an opening and create a mistake.
And I've noticed that lacrosse scores tend to be quite a bit higher than hockey, so I'm assuming that it's much easier to set any type of pick and like get that goalie to not be able to have that visibility, so you could score a little bit more readily, or is there like what as far as like that attacking philosophy? What
I think the reason that the scoring is so much higher, the main thing is if you're shooting a puck, you're shooting from the ice. Yeah. Right. I mean, rarely is somebody gonna like bat it in or something. You know what I'm saying? Like where lacrosse, if you're playing goal, the ball can come from up high. It can bounce on the ground. Once it hits the ground, like it can come into any weird angle based on divots and stuff like that. Somebody can shoot lower corner, higher corner, and then they can shoot from by their shoulder. They can shoot through their legs. They can shoot around their back. They can shoot all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little tougher it's tougher to get a sight line on when the ball is coming, I
Gotcha.
think,
Okay.
versus the puck.
And goalies have quite a bit less padding from what I've seen as well, so they're not working with as much down low, so they probably don't cover as much space and area, I would imagine, too.
That's a good point, too.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
They don't have like all the crazy stuff like hockey players do. Like it's pretty much women's lacrosse. It's like you have like little, like not like soccer shin guards, but like they cover your knee and like the majority of your leg. Those are optional, and then you have like, you know, your chest protector, your helmet, the neck thing, and gloves, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So in that case, let's talk a little bit about like the actual speed of play as well too. So we were talking about this a little bit earlier as well. And you're saying as far as pace of play and how fast the actual movement is going, for instance, we'll take for women's lacrosse.
Yeah.
You said it's quite a bit faster than like what somebody would expect from soccer, for instance, right?
Yeah, and a lot of that, especially nowadays, has to do with they started implementing like the shot clock in women's lacrosse. You have 90 seconds once you have possession to the ball to either shoot the ball or give it up, or, you know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
90 seconds?
90 seconds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I
So,
actually didn't know that either.
Yeah, so when they actually changed that when I was in college. So you could technically, when I was in high school and like the first year I played in college, you could get the ball and like you could just circle it around the goal for minutes if you wanted to. Like you could just hold on to it. But since they implemented the shot clock, you only have 90 seconds from either the transition or wherever you gain possession to like shoot on goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would kind of like
Once
speed
you
the game
shoot,
up a little bit.
when does a shot clock reset? Do you have to like hit the goalie or the goal?
Yeah. So
if
has
it
to
goes
be,
past the goal, so it's like basketball. If you don't hit the rim or the backboard, then it.
Yeah, essentially. So if it hits the goalie, it's a reset. If it like, you know, falls out of your stick and then changes possession and then falls out of their stick, you're like fighting for the ball, then it restarts.
Once it goes out of bounds.
If it goes out of bounds and it wasn't like a shot on goal, then the clock doesn't restart.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So that's
Yeah.
So I can see why that would speed up pace of play quite a bit.
Yeah, and they also started this when I was in college. Between the 30-yard restraining, so in the midfield, say a whistle blows because there's a penalty. Depending on the penalty, you don't have to stop.
Yeah.
Like you just have to give possession to the girl, and then they can just go whenever they want.
Okay.
So it like really speeds up the game a lot. And then especially like men's lacrosse too, like that ball is cycling around the goal at a fast pace, and then that shot can really come from anywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas like women's lacrosse, it's considered a dangerous shot if you shoot like through people or if you shoot outside of like the 8-meter line. So it's kind of like soccer, where soccer you have a 6 and you have, is it a 12 or an 18?
18.
And then for lacrosse, you have your goal, and then you have like an arc that makes the 8-meter, and then you have a bigger arc that makes the 12-meter. And so usually when you're like filtering the ball around, you're like in between the 8 and the 12, because defense can't just be sitting in the 8. Otherwise, you know, they're going to get called for that. They have like a 3-second rule.
Yeah, defense. Always
Defense.
gets it. Yeah. I was gonna say I also see you're
They're
of high
fancy.
class with the meters as well, similar to soccer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The higher folk who use meters. Yes.
So because where was I? Oh yeah, but like once you break the 8, it's pretty much, you know, like you can shoot unless someone's in front of you, then it's like a dangerous shot.
Okay.
You can shoot, or if like, you know, if like a defender kind of runs in the way, that's technically, it could be shooting space depending on how they like can't. There's a lot of rules in women's lacrosse. It's like it would
We
take
could
forever to like,
probably
go
go
through
over
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But-
But you have like kind of a better understanding.
Yeah, no, I just really want to get a grasp, because that was actually going to lead me to my next question, which is really what we were trying to talk about today, right? And this was, once again, for both of you. You being a former male lacrosse player and you being a women's lacrosse player, I think this is going to be an interesting conversation. But because of that pace of play, especially just with the specific like needs from an athletic standpoint of lacrosse, what is a ideal athlete going to look like as a lacrosse player, as far as like what their skills and abilities are?
Typically, I mean, I guess like when I'm programming for someone who's playing lacrosse, I want to make sure that, you know, they have a lot of like power through rotation, you know, because
rotational power is a must.
It's huge. It doesn't matter what position you're playing. Like if you can't like rotate, like say you're playing attack or midfield, you know, if you're shooting like this with like just your hands, like it's not gonna go anywhere. You need to like really kind of like whip that torso in there, take a step, and like rotate through all the way. Rotational power is a big one. Just like core stability, scapular stability is a big one, especially as
It's
a defender.
a very shoulder dominant sport.
Yeah.
So like scapular stability is very, very, very important.
Yeah.
For not only like power and strength and like and and like being able to play better,
Yeah.
and at a higher level, but then also safety of the shoulder.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think another thing that I would cover is kind of like agilities or just like reactive agilities, especially with kind of like change of direction.
Okay.
Because I can't tell you how many teammates I've had throughout the years who have torn their ACL.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so that's a huge thing. So, and then like just like unilateral lower body strength, stability, all that kind
Symmetry.
of stuff. Yeah, symmetry.
Yeah.
Upper body symmetry. Like if you're a defender, you need to know how to play lefty D. Otherwise, like you're not going to see the field.
And if you're in attack, you need to be able to shoot left-handed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So your rotational power needs to be fairly, as
Symmetrical.
equal as you
Yeah.
can as a human being, because symmetry can be tough as a human.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to work on both aspects.
I would imagine everybody has like a dominant shooting hand, but
Yeah.
you try and make sure that the other one, the non-dominant, catches up as much as possible.
Yeah, especially going into the collegiate levels, like some like college coaches, won't even necessarily like give you a look unless you can play both sides.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
of course. I
don't
would,
know
I would
why
expect
they
so.
would,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would add to that. I would say first step quickness would
Okay.
be super important.
Absolutely.
So like in
yeah.
any sport, if you have a really quick first step, then you're ahead of everything, right? Because then you immediately have somebody reacting, you immediately have somebody behind you, and then the world is yours from there. So
Yeah.
I'd say like first step quickness is extremely important.
Cool. Okay. And then as far as endurance factors, are we looking at long-term endurance, or is it going to be a little bit more? We talking like 2 minutes, 3 minutes on the field? Like I don't know how fast people are subbing out.
Not so we have people that we kind of have lines, but a lot of your better players, like your first line, is going to spend the majority of the game playing.
Oh, so they're out there the
Yeah,
entire
I mean
time.
you have sometimes you have like 2 or 3 lines.
Okay.
With especially midfield, because midfield comes in and out a little bit, but you need to be able to play for a little bit. So I think just like anything, your interval endurance is most important, because you're sprinting and then you have some time to recover. Sprinting, you have time to recover. Sometimes not as much time as you would like, but I think that's important. Like transitional conditioning is again, I think that's paramount in really a lot of your sports, but certainly in lacrosse. And for us, like if you're hitting, and you're hitting somebody and then you're down on the ground and then you're back up, and transitioning that way is exhausting.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more shop, I think, right? Let's get into what we do best. Let's talk strength and conditioning for a lacrosse player. I want to start with the one that you specified pretty much immediately, and you guys were so excited about right away, was that rotational movement, right? So if you were to take a lacrosse player right now, let's say a college level lacrosse player came to you in their off season, they're like, I want to get better at my game. What would be some of the first things that you're doing with them in the gym?
Probably barbell curl in the rack.
Yes, absolutely. And that's pretty much it. I think
Yeah.
just that
Yeah,
for like a
that's it.
good
No other
hour.
exercise.
And
Just
then
curls,
leave.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But specifically
In the squat
taking up
rack.
a squat
Okay.
rack
Yeah.
Cool.
with a straight bar.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
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 That
It's really
combo
good on your
is-
elbows too.
Yeah, which is probably good for lacrosse because you don't need your elbows for lacrosse, right?
No, you just need your ego. So that's all. I mean, what else do you need for any sport, really?
Yeah.
So-
So I think aside from the barbell curl,
We're
I think,
kidding, by the way, just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say
No
people might be
barbell
listening and
curls.
be like, "Are you insane?" No, yeah, we're
I mean,
joking.
I am
everybody.
insane,
Yeah,
but not
but
that dumb.
yeah,
No, I think like one of the first things I would want to address is kind of like, I mean, just as like in like the strength coach mindset, I would want to see, kind of like asymmetries, especially in like lower body, upper body. So I probably have them, can they do a split squat? Can they take that split squat? Can they do a single leg hop? Can they, transfer that hop and do some sort of single leg, like lateral bounding, like from one side to the other safely and efficiently? That way we know, okay, they're not going to injure themselves, during play. I think in addition to that, just kind of like scapular stability, like we just do a lot of like kind of like rowing and stuff like that. I don't necessarily think you need to do like a whole like barbell bench press strength crazy whatever. I don't think that really needs to be programmed into not necessarily lacrosse. If anything, I would say maybe like a unilateral press
Yeah,
of some sort.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Especially for that stability.
I will say
Like
that
stuff-
anti-rotation, the unilateral,
Yeah,
potentially even.
and when they have,
Yeah.
we have like one side up and like I don't know, maybe have maybe you only have one dumbbell in one hand and you're pressing up. Maybe you even work with upside down kettlebells as well for like some of that forearm strength, and then just trying to stabilize that scapula.
Yeah.
Some of your carries become really important. So I would say stuff like that.
So you guys talked about scapular stability a lot, and I just want to clarify this really quickly. During the game of lacrosse, are you spending your time in a protracted motion, right? So just to clarify for everybody else, that means that your shoulders are kind of rolled forward, right? Is that like the majority of the time spent? Are you going to be rolled over or maybe protracted a little bit more than usual?
No, at certain positions, I wouldn't say that you spend a lot of the time protracted.
Okay.
I think that you do protract your shoulders a lot, though.
Naturally, of course,
Right.
that's
So
gonna happen.
I wouldn't
but
say
is
like
it,
you're like
Yeah.
running around like this.
Yeah.
Like, because like you to shoot, like you have to retract and protract, right?
Yeah, of course.
So
yeah.
there's gonna be scapular movement a lot of times. You want good stability. You want good symmetry in that movement. You want good mobility through the glenohumeral joint. So like your actual shoulder mobility.
Yeah.
You want to be good, just like anything else. Because if you do anything in volume and with power that way, if you're not stable in the scapula and you're not mobile in the shoulder joint, so glenohumeral joint,
Yeah.
then you always risk injury.
Yeah.
Right. And then also, if you don't have those two things, you do give up power.
Yeah.
So
I guess that's why I wanted to clarify, was because you guys were talking about scapular stability a lot. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't like any type of like injury prevention situation, or if it was more of just like a functional and performance based.
I think that when you
idea.
shoot, you internally rotate, right? So
Yeah.
just like when you come forward with anything, whether you throw, a lot
Throwing
of
a
times when you
football,
punch,
baseball.
yeah,
Yeah.
anything like that. So then you're gonna work on your external rotation as corrective and stuff like that, and to kind of counterbalance that stuff. So I would say like I would use like some stuff like that for injury prevention, besides being mobile and then also having some scapular stability.
Yeah,
Is
for
that what
sure.
you'd say?
I totally agree, and I feel like that's something that was like completely like neglected. Like when I was playing in college, like we did so much pushing, overhead, just horizontal pushing, a lot of barbell pushing, a lot of push-ups, stuff like that. And so when I actually started working at MadLab, we were doing like a team workout, and so we were like working on some like falling starts and sprints, and I actually like ran with my arms like crossing in the front because I was so used to like you're holding the stick constantly, and then for a lot of our training we were pushing constantly, so I was just kind of like hunched over like a little bit, and so like when that was something I had to fix, a lot of external rotation and a lot of posterior chain stuff. So
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Our high school weight room for lacrosse was predominantly pushing.
Yeah.
Like all the time. And it was barbell pushing, it was machine pushing. It was just like I look back,
push,
I'm like,
push,
I don't
push.
know why we did what we did. We didn't know. I don't even remember doing any, and this sounds really terrible, I don't remember doing any unilateral lower body movements at all in the weight room.
That's not surprising necessarily, though.
Like literally none. I think we did leg extension, hamstring curl, and leg
Squat?
sled.
Oh, sled. Okay.
Yeah, every once in a while we
Gotcha.
would squat,
Okay.
but a lot of times we did not. We did those three.
So bilateral machine work.
Right, which
Yeah,
is
necessary for sports.
right. It's
Yeah.
just
Okay.
I don't like looking back on it. It's just a disaster. So I think just like with any sport where you're changing direction, and even if you're just like sprinting forward, you need to work on unilateral lower body. Becomes so important. Maybe the most important thing that you do.
Yeah.
Right. And we did 0. So
Nice. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this during the football podcast as well, right?
Yeah.
Is that like the as you were saying, Giules, right? Like that barbell or even sometimes a machine push is so over exaggerated, even for like sports like football. I mean, you could see even people who do it, who have like soccer players are doing all these pushes in their strength and conditioning. I'm like, guys, what are you pushing with your upper body anyways? Right? Like it seems like it's an over exaggerated movement.
Like in soccer, it's hilarious because you're never really going to push forward onto somebody, right? Like you're going to use your body into somebody for sure, but then that's going to be like a lot of core control and then lower body strength.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like upper body push does not seem. The minute that you extend your arms to somebody, you're probably getting flagged, right? Or you're getting some kind of penalty. I mean, I haven't played soccer in forever, so I don't know what.
So Giules, really quickly, is there any time that you would have use for any type of upper body explosive like push in lacrosse for women's lacrosse?
For women's lacrosse, I'm not too sure about an explosive push, but I think
What about like a pivot press?
A pivot press would be really good.
Yeah.
I do kind of want to. So what you were saying with like just like a horizontal push, like defensively, like you need to be able to kind of like hold your own. So it's like, but you can't extend. That's a call. So you literally have to sit here like this, push against the attacker who's coming at you. You can kind of direct them either direction. But yeah, like an over or like a landmine pivot press or anything like that, that would be awesome because it takes a lot of core control. It takes a lot of, I mean, you do add that element of rotation that's like super important in lacrosse. And then just to do some sort of like overhead press is, I feel like, much more beneficial than doing a horizontal press for the sport.
Yeah. For us, when we play defense, we can punch out. You have to have your gloves together, so you can't like cross check.
Okay.
Because you get called for that. But punching out does become important. So you do want to be able to, for us, like you do want to be explosive that way because your punch is important. And then you can like punch slap and stuff when you're playing defense. I played defense, so that's like all I did was doing stuff like that.
I mean, in hockey you can't cross check either, right? So like, you know, it is what it is. Like there's not any sport out there that I know of that you can really do that. But I was just kind of curious, just from a standpoint of
there's a sport
newbie.
that I know that you can cross check, and there's two goalies you see, and there's one in front, and there's one behind that one.
Yeah.
Like tennis, they say.
And they supplement their diets with carnivorios constantly.
All the time. And all they do is front squat.
Yes, exactly.
And barbell curl in the rack.
All the inside jokes for everybody who hasn't listened before, hopefully to look back and try and find them through the rest of our episodes.
Yes, that's what we encourage you to do, and then sponsor us.
And then and then sponsor.
It's also important, Sir Charles.
So
the Wolf Dogs.
You talked about lower body stability, unilateral stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I want to return a little bit to what you were talking about before about ACL injuries being commonality as well, right? So how common are we talking?
It's extremely common. Just in my college career, there were 2 girls in the last 2 years who tore their ACLs. One of them, she was in a game. Starters, yeah.
Oh, sweet.
One of them, she was in the game. She played defense.
Sweet might have not been the right word there, but
I'm just saying,
being
sarcastic.
not very good.
No, I tore my ACL twice, so I'm in the club.
fair enough.
You got,
I got sympathy.
Yeah.
They're part of the club with me. I was just glad people could join me. No, I don't want people to join me.
Anyway, so she was a defender. She was running up, she had like a clear. She was running up the line. What looked like her running in almost a completely straight line, and then just someone putting pressure on her, and she took like one weird step, and there goes her ACL. Another time, we had a girl who took a step to change direction. She was going to switch hands and drive for goal. Took that weird step, tore ACL.
Yeah.
Like,
sometimes it's not even a weird step.
Yeah.
That's the
It's
thing.
just
So
a
like
step,
it looks
shifting your weight on
so
your
people
foot.
are like, oh, they stepped weird, but I tore my first ACL playing basketball.
Yeah.
Right. And I would do a jump cut a lot of times when I was in transition. So I was on a fast break, and I was like, some guy came out some guy was like, just like didn't make it down to the offensive ends because he was exhausted, and we were transitioning a lot. So he was almost under the basket, and he stepped out way too early, and I was like, I'm jumping right around this guy. So I went to jump cut and then like do a layup around him, and I just jumped over it like I've done thousands of times in my life, and my knee just was like, and then somebody was like, oh, dude, you landed weird. I was like, no, I landed the normal way. My knee just decided that it was gonna quit, and it did. So
sounds like you weren't benching enough.
Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah.
I wasn't benching enough, not enough leg extension.
Yeah.
But seriously, it's unfortunate that does happen so often.
But that's the thing, is those are non-contact. Like, I got another one playing rugby, and I went to go hit somebody, but before I hit them, I tore my ACL. So I went to tackle them, a thing I've done, again, thousands of times. But because I had issues in my body beforehand, it's those non-contact things that are such a problem. People can say, like, sometimes like you land super weird, but a lot of those are just, it looks weird because they step a normal way and their knee just gives out, right? Because they already had issues around it, that maybe like the ACL already had problems, or it's just there was so much pressure on the joint for like the 1000th time that it happened, and then it just ripped. Right? And then that's the things that people have to look at is what was going on with your body beforehand? Could your femur rotate enough? Did you have ankle mobility issues? Was there a big asymmetry from side to side strength wise? And was your leg, stuff like that?
No, for sure. And like all that stuff, like that can be worked on. That's easy stuff that you can fix just by, seeing a good trainer, having a good strength and conditioning coach, addressing these things before they happen. That way they don't happen. You know?
I would say like ankle injuries in sports lead to a lot of ACLs.
For sure.
So you get an ankle injury, you tape your ankle. If your ankle is supposed to be mobile, then your knee, which is supposed to be stable, is going to have to move more, right? It's going to have to move more. It's not meant to do that. And then you add strength and power on top of that, plus a competitive atmosphere where you're like, you're not paying it. It's not like you're in the weight room and you're like working on your landing and doing whatever. You have some stuff that's not completely controlled, and you're trying to win at all costs, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you overextend while you're sprinting, or like you change direction and you're doing like harder than you usually would do in the gym or in practice or whatever, because you're trying to win, right? You're trying to beat the person in front of you, and you add all of that up, and that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
You add exhaustion onto that. Makes it even worse, right? Somebody's exhausted, that way higher chance of tearing your ACL with those issues.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, so let's return back to I'm a college player who wants to get better on my off season in lacrosse. So if you're taking me from ground up, you kind of talked about just making sure that they had basic movements, right? Fundamental movements down. What are some of the things once I've progressed past that point? I have good, that's the word, right? Unilateral movements, right? My stability is getting better and better. My squat's looking good. All that stuff is looking good. What are some of the more sport-specific stuff you're going to take me into immediately following that block?
I think we should address just like the rotational power, or just like any, like having a strong core, and which this should be important in like all sports. You should be able to like hold your own.
And you're talking about sport specific in the weight room.
Yes, sport specific in the weight room. Yeah, so training with us, right, in the facility, off season strength. Yeah.
So I definitely think, I mean, the first thing that comes to a lot of people's minds when it comes to rotational core, rotational power, I think like med ball slams.
That's
med ball slams, tossing
thing.
it into the wall, just taking like a step, turning 90 degrees, slamming it to the ground, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that stuff, I feel like, I mean, at least where I was, it was overlooked a lot. You know, we maybe did a couple like pal-off presses, and like that was pretty much it. And like this, just like being able to like hold this position and hold your core really, really tight is so important in the game of lacrosse.
Oh, I can
so
only
important from like every standpoint, every position. Like you just need to, like, if you can't hold your own through this position and people coming at you from like all directions, then like you're in trouble. So stuff like that is like all, you know, anti-lateral flexion, anti-extension, anti-rotation, and then just like powerful rotation through the core are all like super important concepts. And
it kind of makes sense though, right? Because you're taking that strength and stability, right, that you've tried to develop over time, right? But then you're adding in the plyometric aspect of it, right, which is probably the more sport specific, because you're doing that fast twitch movement that's going to be associated with it. Because I'm assuming when you're passing the ball or shooting the ball or whatever you're doing rotationally in lacrosse, you're probably whipping that thing in, right, really quickly.
Yeah,
so
for
that
sure.
Rotation
I like to go in slow-mo so that people see everything. I mean, the ball doesn't go anywhere.
They can really get the feel of your movement.
But everybody's like, whoa. And they slow down too sometimes. Like sometimes the defenders slow down because they feel like they need to. And
it's weird.
It's really cool.
Then you whip it in really quickly afterwards, and they don't even see it coming.
Don't even see it coming. That's another one of those. But
Oh my god.
We were a bunch
lost
of
my train of
12-year-olds
thought.
sometimes, I swear.
Yep.
Oh, but it is extremely rare, like if you're playing a game or you're in practice or something, where like I'm like actually going to completely face you and then pass you the ball. Like I'm either taking off on one foot or like you're sideways, and so I gotta try to turn.
Just like shuffle over.
Like a turret.
I think that's how I would play lacrosse. That's how I would just just quick little stutter step and just pop it over there.
So I think that is extremely important in the game of lacrosse. Is just being able to have like a functional core.
I think one of the things, just so that we can explain this, because we threw out a million terms really fast, a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think the anti-rotation, anti-lateral flexion stuff is so important. Being anti-rotation, we're talking about like the ability to use your core to stop the trunk from rotating. So you might have some rotative force, and it could be like in the weight room, it could be like a band or a cable or something like that. But in lacrosse, if somebody is beating on you with a stick or bodying up against you or pushing you or checking you or anything, the less rotation that you have through that core, less the less accidental rotation, I would say. So
Those
if you're
give
purposely
you have.
rotating, you're ready for that, right?
Yeah.
But the less give that you have from that, then the less chance that you have that they have of jarring that ball out, right? Because then there's less unnecessary movement, except for the movement that you purpose. Like if you're avoiding, then you're ready for that already in your stick. If you're getting hit and there's minimal effect on your core, there's gonna be minimal effect on your stick and minimal effect on the ball.
And for the people, explain anti-lateral flexion as well.
Anti-lateral flexions is if you look at the spine, that's lateral flexion is like I'm laterally flexing to my right, so like leaning to side, or laterally flexing to my left. And then anti-lateral flexion is the ability to stop that, right? If I'm in the weight room, I might do a suitcase carry. So I might hold a heavy dumbbell or kettlebell in one hand, like my right hand. If I just like let everything relax, I'd fall to the ground probably. But if I let everything relax in that, if I'm holding it in my right hand, then that dumbbell is going to pull me towards my right side, right? I need to use my core to stop that pull and to stay upright in a good posture.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Today, Giules and I were training, and actually she gave me the idea of having the anti-lateral flexion suitcase march. I think.
Suitcase march?
Yeah.
Oh, those are terrible.
Oh, those were
We
yeah.
haven't done those in forever.
Those were awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot
I
how
didn't
bad those
personally
were.
do them.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do them myself, but I had my client do them because they.
Oh, I did
looked-
see that. Actually.
Yeah,
I knew
yeah.
somebody was marching in there, and then
Yeah.
I looked at it and I was like, "That sucks."
Yeah, John was marching today.
Yeah.
He's doing a great job.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
well,
I
he
made
does a
Noah
great
do it
job at
later.
anything. That
Yeah.
guy is like,
He's
that
an
guy
animal.
could be like 140 years old and still like be doing the same stuff.
Yes.
He's just an impressive individual.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
and a wild man.
Yeah, he is a wild man.
We'll gloss over that for a second and
We'll
get back
have
to
a
lacrosse.
John
We have cool
podcast.
clients. We have cool clients.
We
That's
do
what I
have
say.
cool clients. I think we have an awesome group of clients. I really
Can I
do.
get credit for something right
Oh,
now?
yeah, sure.
Do you see that I'm actually wearing my MadLab shirt?
I did notice
today?
that actually.
Yeah.
It's not
Actually,
a
we're all
s-
three of us.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
MadLab shirt.
It's almost
Try
like
out for
we
it. It's like,
just came from work.
Lights start turning on and flickering and stuff because we're all excited. Mike, you should. That's why you should give us the God drop. That would be excellent. We're working on having like different drops for our podcast, like noises. Like Mike can hit a button, and then we feel like even more professional, and or maybe he feels even more professional. I don't know how to work. I would just be more amused, and I think that's what's important. Continue, Alec.
This is where all the coffee's. This is where all the coffee's coming in
Yeah,
for you,
it's way
Dan.
too
Yeah,
much.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, Dan. You can always tell when Dan's had a little bit too much coffee.
2 cups is too much. 3 cups is disaster. And then there was the what do you call the additions?
The coffee
Creamers.
creamer?
Coffee creamers.
What's that?
That's you pouring it in. It's not a
Pours
rum bottle.
Creamer like that.
Well, I always
Like,
pour it like
what do
I'm
you
serious.
mean by additions?
It was
It's all
peppermint
about
mocha.
grip.
Is peppermint mocha, Mike?
Yes, it was peppermint mocha. Get it
okay.
I
right.
think that's actually another thing that's really important in lacrosse is like grip and forearm strength.
Oh,
Which we
yeah.
forgot
I
to
heard you
talk
guys
about.
talking
Yes.
about that. Yeah.
Thank God for the
Yeah.
creamer
Yeah.
and how I pour it. So, because I will never, somebody could like run into me and that creamer is not going anywhere else.
The weirdest segue to lacrosse ever, but let's go for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's super, super important. And I mean, right off the top of my head, like I think like if someone's gonna check the ball out of your stick, like the best thing you can do is have good grip strength, good wrist, being able to kind of lock it into place. What is this called?
Good wrist-
Stability.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
was like, what is this? and then
Me holding on for dear life.
because if you can hold on to that stick, it's less likely the ball's gonna pop out. It's less likely that they cause a turnover.
Yeah.
Another thing off the top of my head.
Do you have
is,
sleeve
like,
gloves?
I do have sleeve gloves.
You got the socks and the sleeve gloves. There's a lot going on here.
When I came to
Let's say she's
You came
prepped.
to party.
She's prepped. Yeah. No rules, Giules over here coming in.
rules.
The big stabby.
Yeah, big stabby with this. That's why I have the sleeve gloves. It's for this,
That's for that
I'm really-
hobo stabbing.
I was really disappointed you didn't intro her in the podcast as Big Stabby today. I was
Oh, I
hoping
know,
you were
should've.
going to intro. Yeah.
Well, I leave the intros, like the custom intros for Lukey.
Oh, true. Yeah. True. Sorry, Giules.
Yeah.
But you're Big Stabby to us, so
Thanks.
Yeah.
that's what matters.
Thanks.
You're many thanks to us. No rules, Jules.
No rules, Jules.
Big stabby.
Is there
Jules
anything else?
Rose 414.
Oh yes, yeah.
Jules Rose.
We're not going to
That's
explain
a
any of this.
fan-
No. This is all for just the.
That's
just the
for
MadLab
that's for
crew.
the nickname podcast.
Yes, yeah, which we'll
Nickname
get to
podcast.
weeks
Yeah,
from now.
yeah. That's Christmas Eve.
That'll be our bonus episode.
2042.
Whoa, that's okay.
Yeah, we'll have thousands of sponsors and all the time in the world.
I was gonna say, man, that'd be awesome. All right, so back
Will
to
be. It will be
wrist
awesome.
stability and Dan.
Yep.
Stick with us.
Yeah.
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse.
Say it for
Hand
me.
stability,
Yes.
grip strength,
Yes.
wrist flexibility. That's what I would say.
Okay.
All right.
But the ability to control the wrist in all ranges of motion.
Yes.
Okay.
And using grip strength to do that.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
Another part where the grip strength comes in is if you are like a draw girl or like a fogo in men's like face off get out.
Ooh, I do know that one.
Yeah. In men's lacrosse.
It's amazing that you know.
Face off get out is like the funniest thing I've ever
I
heard.
always wanted to do face-offs, and they never let me. And I was
They
like,
look really fun.
yeah, I thought I was good at face-offs, but that's all good.
But anyway, so at least in women's lacrosse, you can't necessarily like body up onto that person. So in order to kind of get that ball to pop up in the air and get it in the direction you want it to go, kind of like, you know, in basketball when they do the toss-up thing, you know. And then,
Jump ball?
Yeah.
Very complicated name.
Yes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I was
yeah,
Jules is having trouble with the few.
With words today.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when you're kind of staying there, the ball, so in women's lacrosse, if you're not familiar, two girls, they stand in the middle of like the center.
Circle?
Like the circle, yeah. Well, I was thinking like the
I'm here
like
with big terms
midfield, there's
coming
a
at ya.
circle. I didn't say the circle earlier. So midfield, there's a circle on the midfield line.
Mike, can you pull up a lacrosse dictionary?
I think that's
I'm
just.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Dictionary.
I was gonna say. It's the cross dictionary.
Anyway, so they stand there in the middle. This is how you start at the beginning of each half and after goals. The sticks go back to back against each other, and then the ball goes in the middle, in between the sticks. And so they stand there and they're pushing against each other. But when the whistle blows, you have to kind of pop the ball up and direct it to where it needs to go. If you don't have the grip strength and the hand strength and the wrist strength to direct that ball towards your girl or straight up in the air, and then also if it goes straight up in the air, to reach with your hand and your stick and grab it at its highest point,
Yeah.
you're not going to win.
So how are
You're
we
not gonna win
training?
the draw.
How are we training for that?
How are we training for that? Well, I can tell you what they made us do like in
tell
high
you how we're
school
not
and
training
stuff.
for that.
Yeah, this is probably how I won't train it for this because
No.
there's no way I'm doing this here. But they used to make us like they would have buckets of rice, and then you just shove your hand in the bucket and do this in the bucket.
Wait,
Okay.
do you
Yeah.
grab the rice and then do that or
You
not?
I would just make a fist and then go like this.
That's
It's not
interesting.
the most
I
efficient.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's way more efficient ways to
Because
do
even if you just grabbed a rice and squeezed as hard as you could into that, it wouldn't be like the worst thing in the world. Because then at least you're like getting some grip as well. The wolf dog looks like a bear or something.
the
She
wolf
looks like a
bear.
good teddy bear. Yeah.
She looks like some kind of stuffed animal. She is alive, again. But I'd probably do like some other grip.
Yeah, for sure.
Specific
Like any
stuff.
kind of like upper body pulls, really. Like you're
Yeah.
doing a lot of grip strength. Any type of like 3-point row variations that works on grip strength. You could pull the sled and just hold on to the little handles
Yeah.
that works on grip strength.
I think you could fat grip some stuff and then do some
Yeah.
stuff where like where like things aren't under your control necessarily, if that makes sense. So like you could hold kettlebells and then kind of just twist the kettle. Was that wolf dog? Twist that's hilarious. Twist the kettlebells in a certain way, right? So like or you can have
Like the
somebody like
plate
hit them
pinches.
as well. So like you can like
Too.
hold the kettlebells and somebody hits them and you just try to hang on, because when you have that stick there, you have control of your own stick somewhat, but then they're pushing against it, right? And they're trying to get their stick in a certain position so that they can get the ball out the way that they want.
Yeah.
Does anybody's sticks get ripped out in that position?
Like the laces?
No, just like the
Or,
stick
like,
ever
out of
come
their
out of their
hand.
hands.
Pop out
Yeah.
of their hand.
Yeah, no, it's happened
Yeah, and
before.
that's what you don't. You're
Yeah.
already lost at that point
Yeah.
too, right?
I've seen people get like checked and the stick just falls out of their hand.
That's
Yikes.
Yeah. So it's like
Ah.
that's like it's super important. And I mean, like most of the time if the stick falls out of your hand, they call it like a slash. Like it's an
Gotcha.
aggressive check. But
Yeah,
yeah. So but you should be able to like hold on to the stick, especially if you have the ball. If you
Yeah.
have the ball and you're getting checked, that ball should not come out of the stick. Your hand should not leave the stick. Like
No, you're saying like the stick shouldn't come flying out of your hands.
yeah.
Like somebody just like
Yeah.
so rips it out.
How often do turnovers happen in lacrosse? Is it a pretty common thing? Or
Yeah, it's pretty
yeah.
constant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously at higher levels, you see less turnovers because in any sport, as you get towards higher levels, then offense becomes more dominant because you have the same level athletes for the most part on the field, and defense always has to react.
Gotcha.
So at higher levels of anything, offense is going to be smoother, and they're going to be able to do things that make the defense react all the time. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? If I have two athletes that have the same speed and we're playing football, then the person, if they know what they're doing route running wise, then they're going to beat their defender almost every time, right? Because that defender has to react, so they're always going to be a tick slow, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with anything else. So yeah, at the lower levels, the turnovers are all over the place. For sure, because then people don't know offenses as much. But then at the higher levels, it's a little bit less often. But you do have a lot of transition in lacrosse, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially like if like someone hits a shot or shoots and that shot hits the goalie and bounces out, like that's a rebound. Whoever gets that, turnover. If it goes out of bounds, turnover. Like if you're passing it and someone drops it, could be a turnover. Like stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So it like happens constantly. But I think where was I gonna go? Speaking of like speed and stuff and all that, I was like thinking earlier, like if I'm training a lacrosse player, I'm like 9 times out of 10 going to be training them on like reactive, like change of direction.
So agility.
Like agilities, yeah. Instead of just like, all right, let's just like run at a straight line as fast as you can. Because the only person who like may possibly run in a straight line for an extended period of time is going to be a midfielder on a transition. So, or like anyone who has the ball on a transition. But I think like that's super important to kind of go over too, is just kind of learning how to control your body movement in those quick reactive like settings.
Yeah.
Because like if I'm an attacker and I'm going to drive to goal, like I need to cut, I need to dodge, I need to do everything I can to get into that 8 and shoot the ball. I can shoot around my defender. I got to take a step, shift my weight, shoot around the defender, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
And for what Giules is saying is she's saying like just so that everybody understands this, and we talked about this on one of our other podcasts, the difference between change of direction and agility.
yeah.
So change direction is obviously anytime you change direction, but if I'm running out a cone, Alec sets out, and then he has another cone behind it, and he goes, Dan, you're going to run left at this one, and then the next one you're going to run right. That's purely change of direction. If I'm running at a cone and Alec says, Dan, I'm going to tell you left or right as soon as you get to the cone, and you have to react smoothly, that becomes agility, because I'm not sure. I have some choices, obviously, but I'm not sure which one he's going to say, right? And I think that's really, really important in any sport, especially lacrosse.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I would definitely say. I just don't want people to get confused.
Yeah, no, I totally
what
agree.
they're saying.
And I think, interestingly enough, too, that kind of helps with the ACL prehab as well, right? So when
For
you're
sure.
learning how to do consistent, good change of direction, right, you're also learning how to stabilize through your hips and knee and ankle during that motion.
Right, when
So
things
it's gonna
aren't
help.
as expected.
Exactly.
Which is important.
Yeah.
However, I would say that if somebody does not change the direction well, then don't do agility. So don't do
Yeah.
things where they are reacting to a stimulus that they're not sure about until you have their change of direction skills down to where, like, when they cut left, when they're supposed to cut left, they do that smoothly. Are they going to cut right at this cone? Can they do that smoothly? If not, then they're going to do it even less smoothly when you have them do agility, and it's not going to be good reps. So don't have somebody do something that's going to just pile on bad rep after bad rep.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I agree.
Thanks.
Any last yeah, good stuff. Any last thoughts, guys?
The official drink of lacrosse is what?
LaCroix.
LaCroix.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
I think so.
I think you're right.
LaCroix.
LaCroix.
I like to say La Croix. Yeah.
Well, I
Sounds way fancier.
appreciate your guys' fanciness.
Appreciate it,
It's
guys.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it. All right, we lost Dan. All right.
Alec, if you don't mind, I'd like to say a big thank you to Giules
Yes.
and all of her partners that brought us here today. All your groups of lawyers
Yep.
and directors, your agent
It took a lot
as
to
well.
get to me.
It did take a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
to get to
A lot
you.
of convincing.
I had a
lot
busy
of
schedule,
convincing.
so
We had to send the wolf dog in with a bomb attached to blow a hole in the side of your building so that we could come into the back. So it was a decoy. Don't tell anybody that, though. this will be aired publicly. Alec, if you don't mind, can you take us away with what people are supposed to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you enjoyed Dan's little ramble at the end there as much as I did, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, you can find us on YouTube under MadLab Performance, right? If you subscribe, make sure to hit that little bell button so every time we post something new, you'll get that notification right away. If you're more of the podcast specific, you don't want to see our ugly faces, then that's totally up to you. Go ahead, find us anywhere you can find podcasts. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. And make sure you subscribe, download, check out these episodes and more. Thank you, guys.
I feel like you're really hitting your stride on that. I'm very proud of you. Very proud of you.
Thanks, bud. I've done it a few times.
And I'm proud of all you guys that tuned in to listen to another episode of The Lab.